The night was quiet when Ethan came home. The colony lights were fading behind him, leaving only the pale moon and the soft hum of his hoverbike. His small cabin sat on the edge of the woods, far from the busy human settlement. He liked it that way. After years of war and noise, silence was his peace. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The smell of metal and dust filled the air. He had been gone for 3 days, working in the orbital scrapyard, cutting apart old ships left from the human-alien conflict. It was hard work, but it kept his mind busy. Ethan dropped his helmet on the table and sighed. But before he could switch on the lights, he heard something. A soft clatter. It came from the kitchen. He froze. His hand went to the pistol on his belt. Out here, animals sometimes broke in, or worse, raiders. He moved quietly, boots pressing against the old floorboards. The noise came again, like metal falling against tile. He turned the corner and stopped. 2 small shadows moved near the counter. At first, he thought they were human children. But then one lifted her face and his breath caught. Her eyes glowed faint blue, wide and scared. Her skin shimmered under the dim light, soft silver like moonlight over water. They were not human. 2 little alien girls stood in his kitchen, trembling, holding each other's hands. They couldn't have been older than 8 or 9. Their clothes were torn and dirty, their faces streaked with dust. One of them clutched a small metal cube to her chest. Ethan lowered his weapon slowly. "Hey," he said softly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The smaller girl stepped back, hiding behind her sister. "Please," she whispered in a shaky voice. "Don't send us away." "I'm not gonna send you anywhere," Ethan said. "Just tell me who you are." For a moment, neither spoke. Then the older one lifted her eyes to him. "Our mom is gone," she said, her voice trembling. "She told us to find the human man. She said he would help." Ethan frowned. "The human man? Who's your mom?" She didn't wake up," the younger girl said. Her lip quivered. "The men in black armor came, we ran. They took her." Ethan's stomach tightened. Men in black armor, probably colony enforcers or bounty hunters. They didn't come this far out unless they were chasing something serious. He walked to the window. Out in the distance, faint lights flickered through the trees, scanning beams from hover drones. They were searching. He turned back to the girls. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" The older one nodded. "They said we're dangerous, but we didn't do anything." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Ethan saw the fear in their eyes, the kind he'd seen before in war zones and refugee camps, in faces of those who had lost everything. He took a deep breath. "What's your name?" The older girl hesitated. "I'm Nira," she said. "This is my sister Soli." He nodded. "All right, Nira, Soli, listen to me. You're safe here for now, but we can't make any noise. They'll hear us if we do." He looked around the kitchen, then motioned toward the floor. "There's a cellar under the house. You can hide there." Soli held his sleeve tightly. "Will you come back?" Ethan paused, looking down at her small silver fingers gripping his arm. "Yes," he said quietly. "I promise." He opened the trap door and helped them down. The cellar smelled of wood and old metal, but it was hidden, safe. He gave them a blanket and an old lantern. As he turned to close the hatch, he saw Nira staring at him with serious eyes. "Mom said the human man would help," she repeated. "Are you him?" Ethan didn't know what to say. He hadn't helped anyone in years. But when he looked at their frightened faces, something inside him shifted. The soldier part of him, the one that had buried itself under silence, came alive again. "I guess I am," he said finally. He closed the hatch gently and walked back to the window. Outside, more drones were sweeping across the forest. Voices crackled over radios. The search was getting closer. Ethan turned off every light in the house. He moved quietly through the rooms, loading his rifle, checking the old shutters. His heart pounded, not from fear but from something deeper. Responsibility. He didn't know why those alien girls were here or what danger followed them. But he knew this. He couldn't let them be taken. When the searchlights passed over his cabin, he stayed still. The drones hovered for a moment, then drifted away. The silence returned. He leaned against the wall, listening to the faint breathing from the cellar below. For the first time in years, his empty home wasn't empty anymore. Outside, the night was quiet again, but Ethan knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting, about who those girls were, and why their mother had trusted a human she'd never met. And when that truth came knocking, Ethan knew he'd open the door because now he had a promise to keep. Ethan hardly slept that night. The sound of wind pressing against the cabin walls mixed with faint humming from distant drones. Every few minutes he'd check the window, making sure no lights appeared in the forest again. But his thoughts weren't on the search outside. They were on the two alien girls sleeping in his cellar. He sat by the old wood stove, staring at the flames. He didn't even know why he was helping them. Maybe it was the way they looked at him, like he was their only hope left. Maybe it was because he'd once promised himself he would never stand by while someone innocent suffered. Just before dawn, he heard soft footsteps on the floorboards. He turned and saw Nira, the older girl, standing at the edge of the room. Her small silver skin shimmered in the glow of the firelight. "You should be resting," he said quietly. She shook her head. "Soli had nightmares. She dreamed they found us." Ethan nodded. "She's safe." "Both of you are." Nira stepped closer, eyes filled with worry. "You're human," she said. "Humans don't help us." "Why do you?" Ethan didn't have an easy answer. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything," he said finally. "And because your mother asked for help. That's enough for me." The girl looked down, clutching the metal cube she always carried. "This belonged to her," she whispered. "Mom said it was important, but we don't know why." He glanced at the cube. It looked like a data crystal, sealed and encrypted. He decided not to ask more. Not yet. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, painting gold across the wooden walls. Ethan cooked some food, and soon Soli woke up. She stared at the warm meal with wide eyes, then whispered, "It smells good." He smiled faintly. "It's just soup. Nothing special." But to them it was everything. They ate slowly, their hands trembling as if afraid it might disappear any second. After breakfast, Ethan heard a low mechanical sound outside. He froze, drones again. He peeked through the curtains. Two black machines hovered near the trees, scanning the ground with red beams. The search had come closer. Ethan's calm voice returned, the voice of an old soldier. "Get back to the cellar, now." Nira grabbed her sister's hand. "Will they hurt us?" He loaded his rifle and nodded toward the trapdoor. "Not if I'm here," the girls hurried down. Ethan closed the hatch and pulled the rug over it. Then he turned off the stove and stood in silence. Moments later, someone knocked at the door. 3 slow knocks. Then a voice said, "Colony enforcement." "Open up." Ethan's heartbeat slowed, old instincts returning. He opened the door slightly, showing a calm face. A tall officer stood outside wearing black armor that reflected the morning sun. "We're searching for 2 alien miners," the officer said. "They escaped from containment last night." "Seen anything unusual?" Ethan shook his head. "Just me and my tools. Haven't seen anyone." The officer looked around the cabin, scanning the walls with a handheld sensor. "Mind if we look inside?" Ethan forced a tired smile. "You can look, but there's not much to see. Unless you want rust and oil." The man stepped inside. His boots thudded across the wooden floor. The sensor beeped once near the table, then went silent. Ethan's hand rested casually near his belt, ready for anything. After a tense minute, the officer lowered the scanner. "You live alone?" "Always have," the man nodded slowly. "If you see anything strange, report it. They're dangerous." When the officer left, Ethan watched the black patrol vehicle fade into the forest. He waited until the sound disappeared completely before opening the trap door again. The girls looked up with wide, frightened eyes. "Are they gone?" "They're gone," he said quietly. "But they'll come back." Soli crawled up and hugged his arm. "We'll go. We don't want to bring trouble to your home." Ethan looked down at her, surprised by her innocence. "You won't survive out there alone," he said. "Not with soldiers hunting you." Nira's voice was soft but steady. "Then what will you do?" He took a long breath, staring at the fire that was now dying in the stove. "I'll help you find your mother," he said finally. "I don't know how, but I'll try." Both girls stared at him as if they couldn't believe it. Then Nira whispered, "You promise?" Ethan looked at them, their small faces full of fear and hope, and nodded. "I promise." Outside, the wind rose again, carrying the hum of distant engines through the forest. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun, but inside that small cabin, a promise had been made, and that promise would change everything. By the time the next day's sun began to fade, Ethan's cabin no longer felt safe. The sound of distant ships had grown louder, their engines like thunder rolling through the hills. Every now and then a flash of red light swept across the tree line. The colony patrols were tightening their search. Ethan stood by the window, his jaw tight. The alien girl sat quietly on the floor behind him. Nira was holding the strange metal cube, tracing its edges with trembling fingers. Soli leaned against her shoulder, half asleep, still exhausted from fear. "They're getting closer," Ethan said under his breath. Nira looked up. "Are they coming here again?" He nodded slightly. "Probably. They'll search every home within 50 miles. He turned away from the window, grabbed his old duffel bag, and started packing. Ammo, med kits, food, a few tools. The girls watched silently, unsure what was happening. "Where are we going?" Soli asked softly. "Somewhere safer," Ethan said. "We can't stay here anymore." He didn't mention how little fuel his old shuttle had left. He didn't mention how dangerous the desert beyond the forest was. He just kept packing, fast and quiet. When the last drone buzzed overhead, Ethan motioned to the cellar. "Now," he said. "Stay close." They moved out through a narrow tunnel under the cabin, a secret passage he'd built years ago, back when raids were common. It led deep into the woods, hidden beneath thick roots and wild vines. As they stepped into the open, the cool evening wind hit their faces. The forest smelled of smoke and metal. Ethan crouched low, leading them between trees until the cabin was far behind. Minutes later, a deep explosion shook the ground. Ethan turned back. His cabin was burning. They had found it. Soli gasped, covering her mouth. "You're home." He didn't stop walking. "It's just wood and nails," he said. "You're what matters now." They kept moving until night fell. The woods turned darker, the stars blinking between branches. The girls were tired, but Ethan pushed on, scanning every sound. He knew the patrols wouldn't stop until they caught their targets or killed them. They finally reached a clearing where his old shuttle was hidden beneath a camo tarp. It was a small beaten ship, half rusted, half functional, but it could fly. "Get inside," he said, "and keep your heads down." The girls climbed in, clutching each other's hands. Ethan powered up the engine. The old machine groaned, lights flickering, but it came alive. As the thrusters warmed, Nira looked out the window and whispered, "Do you think Mom's still alive?" Ethan didn't look at her. "If she told you to find me, then she believed she'd make it," he said. "That means we don't give up either." Before she could answer, the radar beeped. Multiple signals. 3 colony ships closing in fast. "Hold tight," Ethan said. He pulled the controls and shot the shuttle upward. The forest dropped away beneath them. Spotlights flashed, beams chasing through the darkness. Ethan swerved between the trees, barely avoiding collision. Soli screamed as a blast tore through the air behind them, shaking the cabin. Sparks flew from the engine panel. Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing the shuttle higher until the clouds swallowed them whole. When they finally broke free above the storm, the world below was just a sea of lights and smoke. The chase had ended, for now. Nira unbuckled and crawled to his side, eyes wide. "They'll follow us again, I know," he said. "But we'll make them work for it." She looked at him carefully. "You don't have to do this, human. We can go alone." Ethan looked at her, the old pain in his eyes softening. "You're kids. You shouldn't have to run from soldiers. You shouldn't have to hide." For a moment, silence filled the small shuttle. The hum of the engine was steady again. The girls sat beside each other, small and fragile under the flickering lights. Ethan adjusted the course toward the western desert, the last place anyone would think to look. As the stars stretched out before them, Soli leaned her head against her sister's shoulder and whispered, "He's like Dad." Nira smiled faintly. "No," she said softly. "He's different. He keeps his promises." Outside, the stars glowed brighter, leading them toward the wastelands where survival was uncertain, but hope had finally begun to grow. The shuttle cut across the dark horizon, its engines whispering like tired breaths. Below, the forest ended and the world turned to pale sand that glittered under the twin moons. The place was called the Desert of Glass, a wasteland born from old wars where fire had melted the ground into crystal plains. Ethan guided the ship low. The cracked surface reflected their lights in sharp silver streaks. He could almost see ghosts of the past in the reflection. Soldiers, ships, fire raining down. He had fought here once, many years ago. Now he was back with 2 alien children sleeping behind him. The shuttle shuddered. Warning lights flashed across the panel. Ethan frowned. "Come on, not now." He tried to steady the controls, but the engine's hum turned uneven. Nira stirred awake. "What's wrong?" He didn't lie. "We took some damage when we escaped." "The engine's overheating," Soli rubbed her eyes. "Are we falling?" He gave a faint smile. "Not if I can help it." The old ship fought him the whole way down, shaking like it wanted to fall apart. Finally, with a deep groan, it landed hard on a stretch of cracked glass, skidding before stopping. Silence followed, only the whisper of wind moving over the desert. Ethan shut down the power and leaned back, breathing slowly. "We'll rest here," he said. "I'll fix what I can." Outside, the air was dry and cold. Every step crunched like walking over broken mirrors. The twins followed him, their silver skin glowing softly in the moonlight. The world looked endless. No cities, no patrol lights, no life. Soli knelt and touched the ground. "It's beautiful," she said, seeing her reflection staring back. Ethan nodded, though he remembered when this place burned with war. "Beautiful and deadly. Stay close." They built a small fire behind a wrecked metal slab for warmth. As Ethan opened a panel on the shuttle, Nira sat beside him, holding the metal cube their mother had given her. "She said it's important," she whispered again. Ethan glanced at it. "Do you know what's inside?" Nira shook her head. "She said it could change everything, for both humans and our kind." He took a long breath, the flames flickering across his face. "Then we'll find out." He set the cube on the ground and connected it to his handheld scanner. The device flickered, showing locked data lines. "Encrypted," he muttered. "High-level military tech." The screen glitched once, then displayed fragments. Maps, documents, and a symbol he hadn't seen in years. Project Ashfall. Ethan froze. That name belonged to a secret program during the war. One meant to erase entire alien colonies, disguised as containment operations. If the data proved real, it could destroy the colony leadership that still ruled over both humans and aliens with fear. Nira watched his face pale. "You know what it is," she said. He nodded slowly. "Your mother was trying to expose something. Something huge." A distant sound broke the silence, low, mechanical, getting closer. Ethan grabbed his rifle. "Drones." He shoved the cube back into Nira's hands. "Inside now." The girls ran toward the shuttle as shadows crossed the moonlight. 2 black drones descended from the sky, scanning beams sweeping the sand. Ethan ducked behind a rock and took aim. The rifle's plasma bolt hit the first drone clean through the core, sending it crashing in flames. The second fired back, lighting up the ground with bursts of energy. "Stay down," he shouted. He rolled across the sand, firing again. The drone burst, raining sparks across the glassy ground. The noise faded, replaced by the sound of his heavy breathing. When it was over, the girls rushed to him. Soli clung to his arm. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, brushing off dust. "Just old bones complaining." He looked at the burning wreckage. "They know where we are now," he said quietly. "We can't stay long." Nira held the cube tightly. "They'll keep coming," Ethan nodded. "That's why we need to move before dawn. There's a canyon west of here. If we reach it, they won't find us." Soli looked up at him. "You always know what to do?" He smiled faintly, hiding the truth that he was making it up as he went. "That's the trick, kid," he said. "You just keep moving forward." They packed quickly. As they left, the wind swept over the burning drones, scattering ashes across the glassy plain. The stars shimmered above them like watching eyes. Ethan led the way, his shadow stretching long behind him. He didn't know if they'd survive the next night, but he knew one thing for sure. Whatever was inside that cube, he couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands for now. His only mission was clear: protect the girls, keep the promise. And in the heart of the silent desert, surrounded by the ghosts of old wars, that promise burned brighter than the fire in the sky. Dawn came slowly across the desert of glass. The light turned the melted sands into a sea of orange fire. Ethan watched the horizon from where he sat by the shuttle, rifle across his knees. He hadn't slept. The drones from the night before still burned in the distance, black smoke curling into the pale sky. Inside the shuttle, the twins slept close together, covered with an old blanket. Their soft breathing was the only peaceful sound left. Ethan rubbed his tired eyes. He had been through 100 battles, but this felt different. He wasn't fighting for orders or medals. He was fighting to keep 2 innocent lives safe. As the sun climbed higher, Nira woke up. She stepped out, her silver skin glowing in the new light. She held the cube again. You didn't sleep, she said softly. Couldn't, he replied. Too many questions in my head. She looked down at the metal cube. About this? He nodded. Your mother. Dr. Lyra, right? I remember that name. She worked for the Peace Council during the war. Nira's eyes widened. You knew her? Not personally, he said. But I remember her messages. She tried to stop the fighting. People called her a traitor, both sides did. Maybe that's why they're hunting you now. Nira turned the cube in her hands. Mom said the truth was inside this. But I don't know what truth she meant, Ethan sighed. Let's find out. He connected the cube to his handheld scanner again, this time rerouting power through the shuttle's systems. The screens flickered, symbols flashing across. Then, for the first time, the encryption broke. A holographic projection shimmered into the air. Dr. Lyra's face appeared, tired but calm. Message log, her voice said, static breaking every few words. To whoever finds this, especially my daughters, know this truth. The humans never ended the war. They only changed the name, Nira gasped. That's her. The image continued. Project Ashfall was not a defense plan. It was a cleansing order. Millions of refugees, children, families targeted for extinction. They will silence me for exposing this. But the data here proves everything, please. Deliver it to someone who still believes in peace. The hologram flickered out. Silence filled the cabin. Ethan leaned back, staring at the blank screen. He remembered the missions, the briefings, the coded orders during the war. He'd been part of some of them. Back then he never asked why. Now he knew the answer, and it sickened him. Nira's hands trembled. She was right. They killed her because she told the truth. Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. Then we'll finish what she started. But how? Soli's voice came from behind them. She was awake now, rubbing her eyes. They'll kill us too. Ethan stood up, checking the sky. We don't have much time. If we send this data to the outer networks, the truth will spread before they can stop it. But we need a signal tower, something powerful enough to reach orbit. Nira nodded slowly. There's one near the canyon. Mom said she sent messages from there before. He turned toward the west. Then that's where we're going. They packed quickly. The desert heat was rising, waves of light bending the air. Ethan lifted the cube carefully and placed it in a small armored case. This thing, he said quietly, is worth more than all the ships in the sky. And that means everyone's coming for it. As they moved out, the girls walked beside him, their small feet crunching on the glass-like sand. For a while, no one spoke. The silence felt heavy, full of grief, but also purpose. Finally, Soli broke it. Do you think Mom saw the stars before she... She stopped, unable to finish. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. I think she did, he said. And she's probably watching them now, hoping you'll finish her fight. The girl nodded, her eyes glistening. Hours passed as they crossed the glowing plains. In the distance, the canyon walls rose, tall, red, and sharp like broken stone teeth. Somewhere within them stood the old tower that could save them, or expose them. Ethan glanced back once. Far behind, a dark shape moved in the sky. Ships again, hunting, relentless. He gripped his rifle tighter. Keep walking, he said. No stopping. No looking back. The girls obeyed. The wind picked up, scattering glittering dust across the endless horizon. The truth was no longer hidden. It was alive, carried by a broken soldier and two alien children, running toward hope through a dead world. And deep inside Ethan's heart, something old was waking again. Not anger, not duty, but something stronger, faith that one man could still make a difference. The canyon came into view at sunset, red walls rising like giant towers, glowing gold in the dying light. The air shimmered with heat and dust. Ethan guided the girls along a narrow path between jagged rocks, every sense alert. The silence felt wrong. Too quiet. He stopped suddenly. Stay behind me, Nira frowned. What's wrong? Ethan knelt, touching the sand. The faint vibration beneath his hand wasn't natural. It was engines. Multiple ones. They found us, he said. Moments later, the roar of gunships filled the air. 3 black ships broke through the clouds, their searchlights slicing across the canyon. The desert wind carried the echo of mechanical voices. Surrender the fugitives. You are surrounded. Soli clutched Ethan's arm. They're here! He grabbed his rifle and pulled them toward the old signal tower hidden deep in the rocks. The structure stood tall and broken, its antenna bent but still shining faintly. If he could reach it, he could upload Dr. Lyra's message to the orbital network. Run, he ordered. Don't look back. They sprinted through the dust as laser blasts tore into the ground behind them. The air filled with fire and noise. Ethan turned once, firing at the closest drone. The bolt hit dead center, sending it spiraling down in flames. Go! Move, he shouted. They reached the tower's base, panting. Ethan slammed his hand against the control panel, trying to bring it online. Sparks flew, the old system flickering with weak light. Come on, come on. Neera pressed the cube into his hand. Use this, she said. He connected it to the console. The screen glowed. Dr. Lyra's symbol appeared again, followed by streams of code racing upward. The signal tower hummed, slowly coming to life. Outside, another explosion shook the canyon. Rocks fell from the walls, scattering dust over them. The girls ducked behind a fallen beam as Ethan shouted over the noise. We're almost there, but one of the gunships was descending fast, landing at the canyon's edge. Armored soldiers poured out, weapons ready. Ethan saw them forming a line. They had no intention of taking prisoners. He turned to the girls. Stay low. No matter what happens, don't stop that upload. Neera grabbed his sleeve. You'll get killed. Ethan smiled faintly. Not if I move fast. He stepped out from behind the rocks, firing first. His shots hit 2 soldiers before they could react. The others spread out, returning fire. Red bolts filled the air, burning the sand and cliffs around him. Ethan moved like he was back in the war. Fast, focused, fearless. Every shot, every step bought the girls more time. At the tower, Neera watched the progress bar climb higher. 63%, 74%, 89%. She could barely hear anything over the battle. Then a blast hit near the console, throwing her backward. Sparks showered her face. Ethan! She screamed. He turned, bleeding from a cut on his arm, but still standing. Finish it! He shouted. Soli crawled to the console, coughing through the smoke. Her small hands reached for the final command. Neera, help me! Together, they pressed the key. The console beeped once, and the symbol on the screen turned green. Transmission complete. A beam of light shot upward from the tower, piercing the clouds, sending Dr. Lyra's message across the network, across worlds. Ethan saw it and smiled weakly. You did it! Then the gunships fired. The ground exploded around him. He fell to one knee, struggling to breathe. His rifle slipped from his hand. Through the haze, he saw the twins running toward him. No, he whispered. Stay back. They didn't listen. They reached him just as another explosion ripped through the canyon. The fire reflected in their eyes, painting the world red and gold. When the smoke cleared, the tower was burning, but its light still flickered against the sky, proof that the truth had escaped. Ethan lay on the ground, the girls beside him. Neera held his hand tightly, tears streaking her face. We did it, Ethan. Mom's message is free. He smiled faintly, his voice low. Told you I'd keep my promise. Above them, the stars began to appear, bright, endless, eternal. And as the ships retreated into the night, the story of one human's courage had already started spreading across the galaxy. The night after the battle was silent. The flames in the canyon had burned out, leaving only smoke and dust curling up toward the stars. The signal tower stood broken but still glowing faintly at the top, a single light blinking in rhythm, proof that the message had reached the stars. The air smelled of ash and burned metal. The wind whispered across the shattered glass and sand, carrying the faint echo of a man's voice, Ethan's voice recorded in that final transmission. If anyone hears this, remember what we lost to fear. Remember what we can become when we choose mercy instead of hate. Weeks passed. The galaxy changed. Dr. Lyra's data spread across every colony and every world. The truth about Project Ashfall could no longer be hidden. The Peace Council collapsed. Leaders were arrested. Some fled. Some begged for forgiveness. Across planets, humans and aliens began to speak again. Not as enemies, but as survivors of the same lie. And somewhere on a quiet border world, far from the noise of politics and war, 2 small alien girls sat beside a campfire, watching the sky. Neera and Soli, they had survived. The stars above shimmered with new hope, and the glow of ships moving peacefully between worlds was visible even from here. Soli held a small metal tag in her hands, Ethan's dog tag, scratched and bent from battle. She traced the letters carved into it with her tiny fingers. Do you think he's out there? She whispered. Neera looked up at the stars. Maybe not in the way we think, she said softly. But he's not gone. Soli turned to her sister. He saved everyone, didn't he? Nira smiled faintly. Yes, he gave us the truth, and he gave us a future. The wind shifted and the faint hum of an old transmitter filled the air. Nira tapped a small device beside her, the one Ethan had used to send the signal. It still played his last recorded message, though static broke through parts of it. Protect them. Keep the promise. The girls sat in silence, tears glimmering in their eyes but smiles forming through them. They had done what he asked. They had kept the promise. Days turned into months. Together they traveled from world to world, carrying Ethan's message with them. They met soldiers who had laid down their weapons after hearing the truth. They met children who had never seen war and now would never have to. Wherever they went, they were welcomed as symbols of peace, the daughters of the scientist who spoke the truth and the human who defended it. On one world, humans built a memorial for the fallen. At its center stood a bronze statue, a man in worn armor kneeling with his hand resting gently on the shoulders of two alien girls. Beneath it, the words read, "He kept his promise." When Nira and Soli visited it for the first time, they didn't speak. They simply stood before it, holding each other's hands. Soli looked up at the statue's face. "He doesn't look tired anymore," she whispered. Nira nodded. He finally found peace. As the twin suns set behind the hills, the statue's shadow stretched across the ground, long and calm. Around them, humans and aliens walked together in quiet respect, lighting candles for the man who had changed everything. That night, the sisters camped outside the city, under the open sky. The stars shone brighter than they ever remembered. Nira stared at them for a long time, then said quietly, "Do you think the stars remember him too?" Soli smiled sleepily. "They do. Every light up there, one for every person he saved." They lay down beside the fire, and for the first time in years they felt safe. The universe had changed, but not because of power or war. It changed because one man had chosen kindness over fear, promise over survival, and now, that choice lived on in every heart that dared to believe in peace. As the wind carried through the desert once more, the faint light of the old signal tower blinked in the distance, steady, eternal, like the heartbeat of hope itself. Somewhere beyond the stars, if one listened closely, a human voice still echoed through time and silence. Protect them. Keep the promise, and they did, forever.